This is Walter Leite, and in this presentation I'll talk about surveys that are administered in group settings or in-person delivery. Group settings are very helpful for surveys because it ensures a high response rate, but it is a situation that it's not common unless the survey is done in organizational settings, such as schools and companies or conference presentations and meetings where the participants will be in situation. Okay, there are special considerations to using group administration. The most important is that the group administration should be standardized, meaning that the procedure should be the same for all groups. The process goes to introduction, special instructions, distribution of the questionnaire, retrieval, and debriefing. Potential problems that may happen in group administration, which you should try to remediate through the standardized process, is that you may need to follow up with a different method, and the surveys are not equivalent in this case. If you allow the administrator to answer questions at the beginning, you also create non-equivalence because the understanding of the participant will have of the survey will depend on which questions were asked. So you don't allow questions at the beginning. There is a issue of participants may rush to complete the surveys, and you are responding to it usually next to people you know in a group setting, so there could be social disability bias. In other words, respondents may respond not in the way they perceive something, but the way they think it's socially acceptable. And so group administration is not a good survey mode for potentially threatening or uncomfortable questions. For the standardized procedure, you should start by thanking respondents for participating, explaining the objectives, and never allow questions. Say that you will take questions after the survey is completed, and you summarize the steps to the respondents. They have to read the cover letter, take the questionnaire out of the envelope, complete the questionnaire, place it back in the envelope and seal it, and wait for additional instructions. They cannot leave, because if you allow them to leave, some will rush to finish the questionnaire. For special instructions, I always emphasize it's not a test, because group administration is in place associated with testing, which may enlist more social disabled responses. Explain that they should put the questionnaire in the envelope and seal it to ensure confidentiality, which is another step to prevent socially desirable responses, and then wait for additional instructions. Then you distribute the questionnaire in a sealed envelope with the cover letter clipped on top, and allow the participants to start as soon as they receive it. So you have to explain the instructions that they can start as soon as they receive it, and then seal it and wait for additional instructions. Allowing them to start is to differentiate it from a standardized testing situation. After all participants complete the survey, you should thank them, collect the documents, collect the sealed surveys, and then allow for questions at that point, because then the questions won't affect the responses since they have already responded. In-person delivery is challenging. It is usually done when the sampling frame is based on a location, and that's how you can reach the participants. So, for example, if you have conference members and you do not have their contact information to send them an internet survey or a mail survey, you can use in-person delivery, or maybe the residents. For example, I've seen a survey that was of seasonal residents of beach houses. Some were seasonal, some were not, and there was no available sampling frame, and they were only temporarily at that housing, so in-person delivery was used. Now, if it's an event, you should not distribute surveys at the exit, because they're hurried to leave and they will just discard the survey. Now, in terms of in-person delivery, you deliver at the entrance, or if it's residential delivery, at the resident. Now, people don't open doors a lot of times, so that may be complicated. But if it's an event, they will pass by. But you have to make the experience of the survey memorable. Make sure that it's something important. So have someone in a uniform, or a sponsor, maybe have a booth set up to show it's something important, and explain the survey efforts. Try to get a couple of questions, a contact information, and you can send the questionnaire with a token of appreciation. You can give the questionnaire then or send it later. This method can be used to just simply obtain the contact information, or maybe the delivery of the survey. But if you have the contact information, you can send the replacement questionnaire later and a thank you postcard. Usually the implementation is based on the foot in the door approach, which means if the person agrees to a small request, then they may participate in the questionnaire later. Now, this type of approach is not really feasible for probability-based surveys. This would necessarily result in a convenience sample, but it may be used for something like creating a panel where you may be able to obtain multiple responses of different kinds for across time from the participants, especially if you provide incentives and you keep them engaged. Community drop-off is used when there is no other way to reach the correspondents, but response rates may be low if it's like a neighborhood. There is a neighborhood association, maybe getting some sponsorship from the neighborhood association where they can send a pre-notes letter about the survey. Now you just leave the survey at the residence. Now, also challenging because people receive a lot of spam, so it's very important to differentiate the survey from spam.